Advice given is for general information purposes. All legal cases are different, and you should seek the advice of your own attorney before acting or making decisions. No attorney-client privilege applies to communications on this show, and no attorney-client relationship is created by calling or writing in. Attorney Rominger practices only in Pennsylvania and maintains his primary office in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Have a light. Oh, there I go. Good afternoon, Carl Rominger here, 540-0580. We'll take your calls here on the air, 540-0580. As you know, earlier this week I did the Carl Rominger show, filling in for the Durgan slot, which is no longer the Durgan slot. It's now afternoons here on WHP. And they're going to continue to go through a few more jockeys through next week, and your feedback is what they're looking for. I think they made it clear that the listeners will not pick the replacement, but their feedback is going to be considered heavily. So if you want to hear me every day from 3 to 6 p.m., you got to let Clear Channel know. You email afternoons@whp580.com. It's afternoons@whp580.com, and tell them who you like. If you like somebody better than me, tell them that too. Jim, you're on WHP 580. What's your legal question?
Hi, Carl. How are you?
Good.
Hey, do you deal in disability cases?
Depending what you mean by disability.
I have severe tinnitus. I don't know if you know what that is.
Yeah, you got ringing in your ears.
Yeah. It's so bad that I can't really do construction work anymore, and I'm wondering how I would find out if I were qualified for disability.
You probably look. So obviously, you don't have a private disability policy. You're looking more for a Social Security disability type claim.
Correct.
So I usually recommend, because here in the Mid-State we have the Dickinson School of Law, and they have a disability law clinic, and they provide advice in that area, so I usually recommend people go there. Dickinson Law School, and they have a disability law clinic.
So you just give them a call and ask for the law clinic?
Yeah, if you look the law school up in the phone book and ask for the disability law clinic, they'll get you in.
Oh, okay. Hey, you have time for another quick question?
Yeah, go ahead.
I've always wondered about when a police officer says to me, we're going to put handcuffs on you for your protection in mind. You're not being arrested. Do they have the right to do that?
I don't really think they do, and I'll explain it this way. For your protection and my protection, well, he has the right to do a pat-down for weapons, okay? Mm-hmm. If he has an independent basis to believe that you might be armed. But if you're truly not under arrest, you must have needed to have done something to make him reasonably believe that securing you is necessary as part of his investigatory detention, okay? So theoretically, they can do a pat-down of you, a plain feel. Handcuffing you as part of an investigatory detention without more, I think, would be a violation of your rights. And the courts would treat it as what we call the functional equivalent of an arrest, meaning the police officer may have claimed you were free to go, but once you're in cuffs, you're really not free to go, right? And so his investigatory detention may then, actually, you don't have to be free to go during investigatory detention, but you may functionally then feel that you're under arrest, and so that would trigger Miranda.
Okay, so you would say, if they wanted to do this to you, you would say,
hell no.
No, you can't put them on unless you arrest me.
I'd say, what is your independent basis to believe I'm a danger during this investigatory detention?
Okay.
And and the answer is, I guess you can cooperate, and then you hope that the police officer turns out not to be A, a maniac, or B, a serial killer in disguise who just stole the police car.
Yeah.
Right? Isn't that how that works in all the movies?
There's really no pat answer for that.
There's no exact answer for that, but I don't think the average officer around here does that.
No, I've only seen it on the TV shows. It seems like on the the cops show, that's
right.
The first thing they say to somebody when they stop you. We're going to put cuffs on you for your protection in mind.
Right. Yeah. Right.
How am I getting any protection out of that?
Yeah, you're not getting any protection.
No.
You just have to trust your government. All right, my friend.
Hey, I will call and try and get you on the in for Durgan.
All right, thanks.
You make an excellent replacement.
Well, thank you very much.
You bet, Carl.
All right, bye. 540-0580, Carl Rominger answering your legal questions. Mike, you're on the air.
How you doing, Carl?
Good.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I think it has something to do with tenancy. I've been dating a girl for a number of years, 8 years. Our primary residence is a house here in Harrisburg, and we're splitting up, but she stays at, we own a couple other properties jointly, but
Okay.
she stays at another property and brings her dog here while she goes to work, is using it as a kennel, I guess, and she doesn't stay here. I mean, how long can this go on? This is my house. I own this one solely. The place where she lives, we own 50-50, and she's been staying there.
So, I mean, so she's staying at the other house more than she stays at the house you're in.
She doesn't stay here at all. She brings the dog here at 7 in the morning, picks it up at 4, and goes to the other place. But, you know, I come in here, I get clean up after the dog. It's like, is this a kennel? I mean, do I have to? She used this as her primary address and everything. Didn't pay any bills here. I paid everything,
Right.
which I didn't care. But how long can I let her do this? Forever?
Well, is she an owner of the place?
No, she doesn't own anything. Her and I lived here together.
Okay.
I mean, I let her live here. I paid all the utilities, everything, mortgage, insurance, but I didn't mind.
But she's not
she
really.
brings-
She's using it as her mailing address, but
I
she's not
guess
actually.
Now it's been 2 months.
She's not using it as her mailing address anymore.
Yeah, she's still getting built here, I guess. Yeah, they're still coming here.
You know, it's a factual question on whether she's abandoned the property or not, or she's really still living there. My advice would be to give her a notice to quit and go through the formal landlord-tenant route, which is basically to say, you know, get your stuff out of here. And then if she doesn't voluntarily do that after the requisite number of days, which I assume you don't have any lease or writings with her.
No.
So I think at this time of year, you give a 15-day notice to quit, I think. 15 or 30. It's 15, I think, this time of year.
Well, I'd be fair. I'd give 30. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I just want to get it, you know.
Yeah, and then say, so what are we doing? You know, are you out or not out? Have you had this discussion with her yet?
No.
Okay, well, have this friendly discussion first,
Okay.
then go the legal route. But you can evict her like any other tenant if she's a tenant. And you know what's going to happen is you're going to try to lock her out, and then she's suddenly going to move back in.
I'm not going to try to lock her out. I'm not going to try to lock her out. I just want to get the key back and get her out. And
Yeah, but what if she says, I'm not leaving?
Well,
Then you got to give her the notice to quit.
I'd have to give her a notice to quit.
Yep, and then go the DJ route, I think. I think to be safe.
Yeah.
All right?
You know, I just don't want to take her stuff and throw it out. I want to
Yep.
be very amicable and do it right.
Right. Hopefully she's listening right now.
I doubt it.
All right.
Hey, have a great day. Thanks, sir. You have a great show.
Thank you very much. 540-0580. John, you're on the air.
Hey, how you doing, Carl?
Good.
I hope you get Bob's spot, and I'm going to tell you why. You don't pull no punches, and everybody's full of banana milk, and when you point out the right, they say wrong.
Right. I appreciate that.
No, I'm serious, because I'm so sick and tired of, you know, the guy called you Jewish. You know, Carl got the job because he's a Jewish lawyer in the area.
Oh, yeah. I'm an atheist. I'm a truck driver. I'm Jewish. I'm Bob Durgan's nephew. I mean, I've heard it all.
Now, here's my question. Do you really think that talk radio is going to survive without somebody without controversy?
Right. And the answer is you've got to have, I mean, it's entertainment as well as information, right? So you have to have a little bit of back and forth.
And I told Shane a legal question, very simple legal question.
Okay.
Right? Can anybody that's really 100% right win with all the controversy going on?
What do you mean?
Well, if you got a medical problem,
Mm-hmm.
right, and you need health care, and you can't afford it.
Well, theoretically, you're going to be able to get it for free from the government, sure.
No. Hey, see, that's exactly what I was talking about. Because you can go to the hospital, and they're going to keep you living.
Right.
But guess what? Next week, you need a follow-up appointment. What doctor's going to see you?
Yeah, and that's going to be an issue. I got to go to break. When we come back, I'm going to touch on that briefly, okay?
Thanks, bud.
All right, 540-0580. Carl Rominger here. I'm still trying to figure out what the hell 200% cotton is. Oh, you give a kid a computer, no telling what's going to happen. Jack, you're on WHP 580. How you doing?
Fine. How are you, Carl?
Good.
Good. Hey, my question relates to home ownership in the event of the death of the owner. My wife and I currently don't have a will. We know we need to get one. She is the sole owner of the house. However, we have a mortgage that is in both of our names. So until we get a will, in the event that she would pass, what would be the issues that we would need to...
Okay.
That would be...
So let me make sure I got the setup right. The deed is exactly titled how?
Just in her name only.
Just in her name only. Well, if something happens to her, then, and she has no will, by operation of law, you'd stand next in place to take all of her stuff, okay? But because it's not jointly titled, you're going to have to open the estate to transfer it. Now, that makes sense?
So far.
But if there's a mortgage on it, the bank may say, well, we have a mortgage with her, and we were planning on having her pay, so we want the mortgage paid off or you to refinance it into your name.
Okay.
Okay? So that would be the little rub in there, is that it would be potentially possible that you wouldn't qualify for a loan on the property. Now, if there's the right kinds of mortgage insurance in place, it's possible that the mortgage would be paid off of a life insurance benefit through the mortgage insurance, at which point you would take it free and clear. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So only thing a will's going to help with is making sure that it's clear that everything goes to you and you don't have to wait around by operation of law, but it's not going to make it any easier to transfer the house.
Okay.
Jointly titling it in a marriage does two things. Now, if you do jointly title it, we would consider it marital property, but we would still consider what she brought to the marriage as the equity in it at the time of marriage, okay?
Yes.
So she's not giving up her equity in it because right now any increase in value of the asset during the marriage is going to the marriage anyhow. So the conventional advice is for a tax-free transaction and maybe for about $200, with filing fees and lawyers' fees, you can do a deed, deeding it from her to the both of you. And then you should do wills at the same time.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, boss. 540-0580. Carl Rominger here. I want to remind you, RJ Gold. If you need to liquidate an estate or business, I recommend RJ Gold Auctions. He can buy outright or sell your items at auction. RJ Gold can be reached at 645-0061. He purchases outright items such as medals, pins, patches, tokens, awards, and badges, and most historical collectibles. He can pay you right away. RJ Gold, 645-0061. 3712 North 6th Street in Harrisburg. Plan to attend RJ's Awesome Auction Sunday, August 25th at 1 p.m. at the American Legion in Harrisburg. PA licensed auctioneer AU 005798. Lloyd, you're on the air. Hey, Lloyd.
Yes. I heard a real estate lawyer say that, and he raised a question in my mind. My house is paid for, but I have a rental, and if something would go wrong, that rental would have to be, that we couldn't pay for it. Are all real estate situations independent in the state of Pennsylvania, meaning that they couldn't come back on the other properties?
Well, it depends. First of all, a lot of times people do what we call cross-collateralization. So when you go to the bank and you say to the bank, I want a loan for this rental property,
yeah,
the paperwork may have a line in it that says, if you have any other loans from our institution, we're going to cross-collateralize.
Mm-hmm.
And so you discover that, the three commercial properties, because you like your bank and they've always treated you right, and there's no reason that they're not doing anything nefarious here. It's very common. They're just basically saying if you get so underwater on one of these properties that we end up upside down in it, we reserve the right to go after any other property that we hold a loan on.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, he was saying though that in some states that's not possible. That's why I was asking whether it was possible in the state of Pennsylvania.
Well, and it is possible to get to other properties because, well, like in Florida where you have a homestead, it's almost impossible to get somebody out of their house. Okay. But
yeah.
in under Pennsylvania law, I'll give you an example. Let's say they foreclose on your rental property and they get a judgment for $28,000 as what was left over when they sold it at auction that didn't pay off the foreclosure costs. loan thing like that. Okay, so now you owe them $28,000. They can come and try to execute against anything you own, including real estate or personalty, okay?
Right.
But if you're married and the house is titled in the marriage's name, then if they only have that judgment against one member of the marriage, just like we were talking about a minute ago, they can't reach that, okay?
Right.
But that's why smart bankers, when they're dealing with husbands and wives, even if one of them seems to be the lead in the transaction, always make sure both sign.
And that wouldn't matter whether that was in the same bank or any other bank.
Right, because, well, and here's the deal, though, okay, but there's one little overlay, right? So if you have a mortgage on your home, to the extent that they're going to try to execute on your property, obviously the lien holder's first in priority.
Right. Okay, all right, thank you so much.
All right, take care.
Mm-hmm.
540-0580. If you want to get in here and get your legal questions answered, we're happy to do that. I just always want to remind you, of course, Harrisburg Beer and Cigar, great humidor, amazing cigar selection. I just smoked one this morning. And if you want to grab some beer but don't want to go all the way to Harrisburg, Big Mike's Beer Outlet in Annville, PA, that's at 1455 East Main Street. You should stop in there and let them know Carl sent you. And I guess I need to remind you as well that Harrisburg Beer and Cigar is going to have a barbecue on August 31st at 2 p.m. Right out at their main location off Union Deposit. So if you would like some barbecue and you like beer and cigars, it's August 31st at 2 p.m. At Harrisburg Beer and Cigar in Harrisburg. And if I'm going to be there, so I'm going to stop in and hang out and eat some barbecue. Also, CDL Labor Logistics is seeking experienced, qualified commercial drivers with clean records for long-term, high-paying driving positions, both local and regional, in PA, Maryland, New York, New Jersey, and more. Call 866-293-1880. Again, that's CDL Labor Logistics. Good company to work for. They have positions with all the top carriers, and they'll get you your foot in the door if you have a clean driving record and a little bit of experience. 866-293-1880. What else did I want to talk to you about? Oh, my mom had promised on on Monday when I was doing the Carl Rominger show, which we did create a Facebook page for, by the way. She promised us a recipe when she came on the air, and so she sent her meatloaf recipe. So if you like meatloaf, I like this meatloaf. This is the kind of meatloaf I was raised on. Nothing too fancy, kind of home cooking. Usually serve with mashed potatoes and, God forbid, some kind of vegetable probably. If you're gonna eat the vegetable, you should at least put it next to the meatloaf to make the appearance to the kids in the house that you're going to do that. But I strongly recommend my mother's meatloaf. She did the thing with the ketchup over the top, so you put the ketchup on top, and when it cooks down, it makes that sweet kind of browned ketchup-y top. So we have the recipe up. I put it on the Carl Rominger Show page, and we'll share it on the Law Office page, and we'll share it on my personal page so you can all get the recipe. And, of course, as I always like, if you guys do take pictures of it and put it on Facebook, I will tell you if it looks right. I can't tell you if it tastes right yet on Facebook. They haven't got the technology down for that yet. But when they do, and I can actually taste it on the computer, probably through some virtual reality iPhone app, I'll let you know. Amy, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. How are you?
Good. How are you?
What's going on?
Hey, I have a question about property ownership and rent-to-own agreements with people.
Yes.
A friend of mine entered into a rent-to-own agreement about 8 or 10 years ago with a family who initially everything was going pretty well, and recently they stopped payments on the property, their installment payments. We took them to a district justice office, and the district justice basically said, I don't want to deal with this case. You need to take it to county court and do an ejectment on them. So we're, obviously the conditions of the property are going downhill further and further. There's also some tax issues. We've been paying extra taxes on the property to get the taxes caught up because they weren't paying that either. Is there any other legal route we could go as far as what we can do with them?
Ejectment really is the landlord-tenant action of the Court of Common Pleas, okay?
Right.
So I don't know why the DJ didn't want to deal with it because he didn't want to do a straight landlord-tenant. So ejectment would be your first and primary, and ancillary to that, if you have a contract with them, you can sue them for non-payment and things like that. to the extent that they've gotten off of. Did your agreement? Do you have a written agreement for rent to own with them?
Yes, we do.
So it should have clauses in it that would give you some upper hand. I hope if it was written well, like attorney's fees and other forms of relief. I don't know if those are in there or not.
I believe the attorney's fees are in there, and things that were also in the initial agreement were, if they got behind on their installment payments, that they would have 30 days, before he started proceedings against this family, and it's just we didn't know what to do, and the house the condition just keeps getting worse.
Getting worse. Well,
we're like, do we call it codes office? But then.
Well, it's your house.
Well, exactly. But then we'll have to pay the fines and all that stuff, and deal with that, if we try and it's in the country, so it's their government is not like, city or even small town government. It's, hard to deal with them, and it's a distance away. It's in northwestern Pennsylvania, so.
So you're somewhat removed from your rental property as well.
Exactly, and we can't check on it all the time, but the last couple of times we've been there, it's just been horrible.
Right. Well, I would say it's time to actually start an ejectment action against them, and see what you can do about maybe even getting them out sooner rather than later, on the theory that they're causing ongoing harm to the property.
Right.
And maybe they'll pony up. Is there a reason why they're not paying? Do we know?
They can't really get their jobs together. They're here and there. They work for a while, then they don't work for a while, and they just really can't get themselves together.
Yeah, you might need to get rid of them.
We've been given as the impression of what's going on up there.
Yeah, you might want to get rid of them then, because it doesn't sound like things are going to get better.
No, and it hasn't. It's been getting increasingly worse, and our attorney actually wanted to do the ejectment, and we decided, well, just wait. We were going to make one last ditch effort to try and get this resolved. We'd like to sell them the house. We don't necessarily want to throw them out, but the problem is they can never get an agreement together, get any money together.
Well, this is like any other long-term relationship. You've either got to work it out or you got to move on.
Right. We've been trying to work it out, but it's just not working.
I hear you. Well, that's the problem. So it may be time for a divorce.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Well, great. Thank you. Help.
540-0580. We'll get back from the break. We'll answer more of your legal questions. Welcome back. Carl Rominger here, 540-0580. Answer your legal questions as we do every Saturday from 1 to 3. This Durgan Show thing had my picture in the Patreon. I can't figure out where the heck they got it from. I'm scared that they must have like some stock archive photos of me. At least they didn't pick the one with the Superman curl and the long hair down the back. William, you're on WHP.
Hi, Carl.
Yep.
I have a question on Social Security.
Okay.
Can you get disability Social Security after you've retired?
I don't know.
No?
I don't know. I do know this. I do know that when you're on Social Security disability, it eventually converts into, I think, a regular benefit of some sort when you reach a certain age. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I would refer you again to that Wiley Dickinson School of Law clinic for disability law.
I had a pension, and I make so much that I have to pay tax on all my Social Security, which I only get $10,000 a year, but I could pay tax on most of it, added to my pension. And I sort of resent that.
Yeah, I imagine, but I don't know the answer, and I apologize.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All right, bye. Why don't lawyers know more about disability law? And I'll tell you why. In the private practice of law, you can make money doing disability work if you do tons and tons and tons of them. But there's imagine that somebody's living on subsistence monies, and they come to you and they need disability. Well, disability is going to be subsistence as well. So it's very hard to fund the lawyers. Now, that's not true of, say, workers' compensation and other forms of disability, maybe for litigation purposes. But actually, Social Security disability, the law firms that do it either do it all the time and lots of it, or none. Now, here's another interesting fact, just so in case you want to know how the real world works. The number one person putting people on Social Security disability these days is, drum roll there, the states themselves. State welfare departments are hiring contractors to comb their rolls and look through their welfare beneficiaries, and they call you up and they go, "Hey, Carl, we see that you're getting medical benefits and food stamps and cash assistance, and we noticed from looking at your medical history that at least what we've been paying for, that you probably have some kind of chronic disability. So we're going to help you fill out all the paperwork and get you on Social Security disability." See, general welfare benefits, cash assistance, food stamps, all those are partly funded by the state and partly funded by the federal government. But Social Security disability and then the Medicaid that comes with it is funded 100% by the federal government. So the plan is for the states and the state. So remember when people have talked about, made fun of poor Obama, poor President Obama. People made fun of the fact that, so many people have added the disability rolls under his watch. And there's certainly a lot of truth to that. But what's interesting is it's Republican and Democratic state leaders who've been helping push as many millions of people as possible off state welfare rolls onto the federal rolls so that there's no state component to the payments. I find that kind of amusing. It just goes to show you that government worries about government and not really about the big picture, if that makes sense. So the little states, would rather not be paying for these things, or the big states, I should say, would rather not be paying for these on their dole, so they force it onto the federal government. But guess what? The taxpayers are the same people, whether you're, a state citizen or a U.S. citizen. So it's the old shuffle, right? The only difference is who can print money and just imaginarily make money up out of the air, and that's the federal government. The states don't have the ability to create money the same way. So that's the real incentive at the end of the day, is get it onto this endless borrowing at the federal level. So next time you're sitting around griping about too many people being on disability and that they're all lazy, keep in mind some actually are disabled, and in fact it's a good social welfare program. And keep in mind that a lot of them used to be on the public welfare, but now found their way onto the rolls because the states made it happen. So always interesting, always interesting. Let's see, I just got a Facebook question. My wife just received her pay stub and is missing her shift differential, which she has been receiving for over 10 years. Can a company just stop paying you like that, or do they have to notify you some way first? I can't listen to you at the moment, but please feel free to use this during the show. Well, I don't know about that. A decrease in wage is always possible, and you may qualify for unemployment if your decrease in wage is great enough for partial unemployment. I forget exactly how that works. On the other hand, under the wage laws, I would think you at least have an understanding at the time you worked that you were getting the differential. So if they didn't notify you previously, I think that they would have to still pay it retroactively. That would be my opinion, that under the wage acts. And the good news is, remember I talked about lawyers not being able to do anything. Well, under the wage laws, if you do have to employ a lawyer, the employer can end up paying the fees for the attorneys. Now, of course, it may simply be a mistake. It may simply be that the employer simply changed their mind and didn't realize they need to tell people, and maybe it'll be very easily straightened out. I don't know how big of a company it is or isn't, but I would suggest probably that your wife mention it to HR and see what they say, like, what happened to my shift differential? Or maybe they've already asked and they said, well, we're not paying that anymore. And I think you could legitimately take the position, and so hopefully, Rob, you'll listen to the podcast here. You could legitimately take the position that they need to pay that back. I also got another Facebook message. That's why we like Facebook, because people can message me all the time, and I end up answering a lot of questions in the middle of the night on this darn thing. But somebody else is observing that their son and friends were handcuffed by the police because they wanted to search the car of the kids when they pulled them over, and they had nothing, of course. But then when the father of the child questioned the local chief about why he said officer safety, and he pointed out that the week before the officer apparently had been beaten up by somebody that she had pulled over. And, therefore, so here's an interesting question. Now we're not doing an objective analysis of officer safety. It's just, well, I got beat up recently, so I'm extra paranoid, so I'm just going to start cuffing people. Let's just bring this back. I mean, this is the whole concept of the Fourth Amendment, because the Fourth Amendment, putting you in cuffs is a form of a seizure, just as taking your data and records are. And if you notice, the president is now backpedaling a little bit, saying, well, we're going to launch a privacy summit, and we're going to do some things because, well, we need to get the public confidence back in U.S. surveillance. And what's the new disclosure? The newest disclosure is that the NSA, of course, said they were just targeting foreigners. Okay, so they weren't reading your emails, right? Just emails between U.S. citizens and foreign targets were fair game. But now they've said, oh, well, we also mean that means any email that leaves the country or goes anywhere off country because we want to read it just to see if it mentions a target. So what they're doing is reading. If you send an email anywhere besides internally in America, and I don't even know this because who knows if this is even true, but they're at least admitting that if it goes out of the country, even though it doesn't go to a foreign target, it may even just go to somebody else who's a U.S., so you write grandma an email while she's on vacation in London. They do read your email just to see if you're mentioning anybody who's on their target list in there. So before, when they claimed they only read emails that went to foreign targets and foreign nationals that were subject to investigation, what they really meant was all emails that go out of country are being read. So that's our newest revelation on our lack of privacy here in America. 540-0580. Get back from the break. We'll take your legal questions. 540-0580. Well, we're back. Carl Rominger here, 540-0580. I see people are already downloading the meatloaf recipe, so if you haven't got a chance, get on there. JC, what's up? Yeah. All right. JC's in the house. 540-0580. Sorry about that. I saw him sneaking around back there. He's dancing now, too. They do that around here. Do you know that Jason Aldean concert's going on tonight, right? Yeah. Are you going?
As a matter of fact, I have tickets.
You have tickets. Well, I found out a buddy of mine, they started tailgating approximately 8 a.m. this morning for the concert. So I have an over and under whether they're even awake to hear the concert. And I say
Sounds
awake.
like some of my Steeler fan friends.
Yeah, I use awake in the nice term. I'm going to avoid saying drunk and passed out before the concert. I hope they have plenty of water on a day like today. 540-0580. Let's get back to legal questions here. If you want to get on the air and get your legal question answered, whatever the topic, you're in a car wreck, I don't know, you want to leave your husband, you want to evict your tenant, your landlord's overbearing, your landlord's running electricity out the your landlord's running his electrical wires off your apartment. That's another famous one. And there's a lot of powerful techniques for taking care of that these days. I strongly recommend people not let that go on anymore. They probably passed a statute that allows for a lot of damages, so it's well worth the effort. So here's the follow-up. Remember a minute ago before the break I told you about how the officer put the boys in cuffs because of officer safety? And by the way, you talk about any of these experiences, 540-0580. The follow-up is, and when my husband asked for the dash cam video, the chief said it was broken that day. And then the tagline is, how convenient. And then we'll talk about that surveillance, right? We live in a surveillance society, but sometimes maybe the cameras are handy. But it is interesting when the camera does not come out or for some reason the tape doesn't work. And I know a police officer who's a friend of mine who refuses because he says the quality of the video is too low, so he refuses to use the system because it's too unreliable. So he just would prefer not to have video ever. Pennsylvania State Police have a very robust system. I personally recommend that if the police were pulling you over and you thought it was a complete snow job for some reason, and you're on the side of the road, there's not much you can do except maybe turn on your cell phone camera and hope that it records some of the sound in action. But if you're near a Sheetz or one of these other modern mini-marts, a Rudders or a Wawa, they have great robust surveillance systems, and they have great video capacity. So, we find that a lot of times in custody exchanges, we recommend people go to the Sheetz. And the reason you go to the Sheetz is it's a great place to exchange kids. It's safe. It's open to the public. It's well lit. And you can get gas and candy while you're there. But more importantly, when everything breaks down and somebody claims that mama or daddy was acting irrational, and usually it's not those, it's the paramours. It's the boyfriends and girlfriends or the new wives or new husbands that are the actor outers quite often at these custody exchanges. You can get a video of it, and because they retain it for a good period of time, it's very easy. If you get hold of a lawyer right away, I have a client call me up and say, and I remember doing this not too long ago, hey, we were at the Sheetz, and here's what happened. This was a whole melee, and dragging the kid by the arm, and fighting and screaming and yelling. Well, you don't get any sound off of it, but you can tell when people are or acting out even without sound. But you got the tape, and you send a subpoena. You open up an action, you send a subpoena, and voila, you have all the camera angles, and you can find out what's really true or not. And actually, interestingly, in that case, I don't think it was as bad as the client thought it was, which goes for the emotion that overrides people during custody exchanges for some reason. What else do I know? Oh, I had a question about how fast does a court have to get back to you on an emergency custody order? The answer on that is as fast as they can. When you walk an order up to the courthouse, in many courthouses, you can't get past the court administrator. So if you take it up on a Thursday afternoon, maybe it gets in front of a judge by Friday, maybe it doesn't. So I would tell people, it's better to have a lawyer walk it through, by the way, because a lawyer can at least express some level of urgency and act as a filter. So why is that possible? Well, when a person goes up by themselves and they're very emotional and they're sure that it's a custody emergency, the clerical people who are handling the paperwork may simply chalk it up to the hysteria or the emotion that the person's experiencing. Whereas if they have an experienced family law attorney that they know is credible, saying this is a true emergency and I would just appreciate it if we could get it to a judge today, I'm going to try to get counsel served or other people served, and in the meantime I would make myself available by cell phone. That sends a message to the court through the staff that there's already a filter in place and that this is something that needs to be in front of a judge immediately. If you actually go to the courthouse and read all the things that are styled as emergency custody, sometimes by bad attorneys or sometimes, many times, mostly by pro se litigants, and you may say, well, they should read all of them closely, and they do. I'm just suggesting that if you want to make sure that when you bring it up to the courthouse at 1 p.m. that it lands at a judge's desk before 3 p.m., it sometimes takes a little more angling than simply filing it. Barry, you're on the WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. Talk line number is 540-0580. What do you want to talk about, Barry?
I have a stepdaughter who, she has two support orders, two deadbeat dads. One is about 6 or 7 years old. It's $13,000. And the second one is now court order about 6 months ago. So he's in arrears about $5,000. Every time she goes back to domestic relations, she doesn't get anywhere. And the one guy, like I said, is $13,000. The other one's $5,000. They're both deadbeats. So one even goes to domestic relations and says he quit his job because he had a problem with the boss or whatever. What recourse does she have? She just doesn't ever get anywhere. She can't afford to take an attorney.
What counties?
Lancaster County.
The answer is some counties are better than others. Obviously, she's not having a great experience there. The real problem is if these guys are in arrears, they should be locking them up, right?
Exactly. As a matter of fact, she went in front of a judge about 4 years ago, and the judge gave a court order that you got to pay $500 now, and you're going to pay so much a week. And there's never any follow-up. Nobody does anything for this poor girl. She can't afford an attorney.
Mm-hmm.
These guys owe her $13,000, and she's trying to raise two kids. And I just can't believe it. Can she petition the court, or do domestic relations just is absolutely no help at all to her?
Some judge is going to smack me for doing this, right? But my advice sometimes is if you truly can't afford an attorney, first of all, it may behoove her to beg, borrow, steal, talk to you or grandma or somebody and get a couple $100 together to get an attorney to start writing some letters, okay?
Mm-hmm. To the judge.
To the judge and or to the enforcement officer would where I would start, okay? I wouldn't go straight to the judge. Yeah. But on the other hand, I have seen people do the thing where they write a nasty note, not nasty to the judge, but just saying, dear judge, I've gone back to domestic relations on all these dates and occasions and asked for relief, and they've never drugged these guys in and put either one of them in jail, et cetera, et cetera. It's been all these years, and I would just like some real enforcement action to take place. I think sometimes a judge seeing that will then, say to the domestic relations department, okay, we'll get this case in front of me, so we or please review this case. And when that happens, it goes to the top of the pile, right?
Do you know what's so disgusting? You read every day, they lock this guy up, they lock that guy up. You talk to friends and they say, well, he was in arrears 2000, they grabbed him, put him in jail. But, you hear all this stuff, and then in her case, nothing gets done.
I don't know about, again, so I don't know Lancaster County per se, but I can tell you, I've done some support work down there, and I've never noticed anything bad or good about it per se. But, for instance, in Franklin County, they don't let anybody get behind. If you're a little behind, Usually, I'm sure somebody's going to call up and say, well, that so-and-so's behind in Franklin County. But the reality is, if you go to their support court, their enforcement stuff, and Lebanon's the same way too, they're very proactive, and the judges are very, I don't want to say harsh, but they're not soft, okay?
They just do their job.
And yeah, it's funny, I did have a judge say to me one time, because I said, Judge, I saw him walking down the street, and I go, Judge, hey, last 2 times you found my guys in contempt and gave them an amount. I said, it's amazing that they were able to come up with that money right away. I was like, you how do you know exactly how much money they have? And he goes, well, that's the problem. He says, I have to figure out an amount that I can collect, because if it's too high, they just won't pay anything and they'll go to jail, right? And then nobody wins. If it's too low, then they'll pay it and who cares? So you try to figure out, how much could this, if he's in arrears $5,000 and I say $5,000 or go to jail, he's going to jail. If he's arrears $5,000 and I say $1,500, I'm getting $1,500, right? So that's what the judge was saying, is there's a science to it.
With her first boyfriend, that one's 12 years old. The girl in question, she's 12 years old, and he hasn't paid anything. I mean, it's like $13,000 or $18,000. It's a ton of money. She can't get a dime.
Right.
And this guy's still walking around.
I understand now. Hopefully she's got better taste in men these days.
Well, I'll take your advice, and we get her an attorney, write a couple letters, and
I think that's the way to start. And the other question is, you have to be careful about this, is why, if they're simply just lazy deadbeats, then that helps. But I sometimes have clients who have kids with people who have, for instance, terminal disabilities, and you start wondering, like, did they meet at the specialist's office, or did they meet at the so you got somebody with no income who then has a child of somebody who has no income, but who realistically isn't going to be held to an earning capacity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, then it's just terrible all around.
It's terrible for this girl, period.
Yeah.
Hey, to change the subject, could I say something real quick?
Yeah, please.
I understand. I heard you say the other day that if it was offered to you, would take the position that Bob Durgan had. Is that true?
I would.
Well, I would just like to say that I think you would be wonderful. I think you would do a great job.
Well, thank you.
I hope you get the job.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. I'm going to go to break. 540-058. When we get back from the break, we'll do another hour of your legal questions. Carl Rominger signing off for a moment.